Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Quadruple killing in Crawl, Riversdale, St. Catherine. Portland residents picking up the pieces after 2 days of torrential rain. And later in sports, reggae girls battle Canada in Olympic qualifier this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. To news from the courts now, leader of the Wandon gang trial, Andre Blackman Brian, has admitted to giving orders to his co-convicts, stating that they too should have been pardoned similarly to the witnesses. Brian, who was allowed 10 minutes by Chief Justice Brian Sykes to continue his address, said his conviction is for the greater good.
I don't have anything against the prosecutor, Miss Bruce, police, the chief himself, the accused. But by principle, precept, understanding, there is only one law, and that is common law. There is only one sense, and that is common sense. One is the only law. I give orders, instruction. They were all under influence. Same for the witnesses.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Strang says the state is responding to the wave of crime and violence in the country. This response comes after yet another bloody weekend in the country. The details in this report from Dwayne Anderson.
But the numbers are not great. We are doing better, but we have done the work to ensure that the police can function. And sometimes, because of the murder numbers, we are afraid to talk about it.
That admission from National Security Minister Dr. Horace Strang. He says some in the administration are afraid of publicly discussing the runaway murder figures in the country. That's because the figures are, quote, not great, end quote. But the situation, he said, is hard to control because of how brazen gangsters have become in their effort to take out their rivals. Irrespective, he says, gains have been made.
Gang wars are reprisals. Now their own, that level, people retaliate and kill each other. We have made to hold it at that level, and have a little down now. We're at the lowest for a long time. We are 144 behind now. That's something I'm going to raise the flag of victory. There have been hard work by the police officers, hard work 24/7 by country. We have made significant progress in cutting back and the gang violence.
The National Security Minister pointed to some of the more high-profile crimes recently where detectives have made swift progress. Proof, he says, that the state is responding to the threat from criminals.
The attack and cash transfer, very young, frightened the public, but all live in Mandeville except one has been apprehended. The burnouts at Reggae Park, we apprehend all of them. The other brutal murder in Waterloo in St. Catherine, we go there, one man take on the police, one dead, other in jail.
In addition to facing gangsters in battles, Dr. Chang says the government is getting more vehicles for the police to respond more efficiently to emergencies. Police stations are also being built and retrofitted.
And we are providing them with technology. Right, so when the police can meet the criminals, we have built up the communication, the cyber system, the computer system, police have computers. And the best way to see that is how we reach the people. When they go on the road, by the end of this year, every police officer on the road and the public safety and traffic enforcement will have his little smart instrument, a printer, that they can give you a ticket and print it out.
The National Security Minister was speaking to JLP supporters in Clarendon on Sunday. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
Detectives from the Criminal Investigation Branch are still at the scene of an early morning quadruple killing in Crawl, Riversdale, St. Catherine. The victims are 3 women and a man. More in this report. 2:15 Tuesday morning. The community of Crawl, Riversdale, St. Catherine was the horrific scene of a crime. The deceased have been identified as 45-year-old Karen Higgins McCroth, a farmer of Crawl. 38-year-old Diane Nicola Johnson, a helper of Fellowship Portland, Dorothy Higgins, and a man known as Kevin. 5 other people, including children, escaped the attack. It's reported that 3 masked men dressed in black-color clothing and armed with handguns gained entry to the house by forcing open a door and grill. The victims were reportedly questioned and then shot. It's understood the children later escaped and sought refuge in a nearby house. The men then made their escape. Residents then alerted the police. One of them spoke with our news team off camera.
We was at a party and a birthday party on the other side of the road, so music did a play, so we didn't hear no shot. But when we leave the party, when it finished, one of the youth with them whole gun I made him drop down by my sister container. We have a shop, and him tried to explain to we, said around 6 man just juke him down on it. Then some next youth come and say around 16 of them and them there down our ackee tree down further upon the road. So some vehicle did leave off after that.
The incident has left the community in disbelief. Residents say it's the first time an incident like this has ever happened in the fairly peaceful area.
She's a nice lady. You understand? We got a funeral, we are not sit down and associate together. I'm not paying no part of Miss Brown. Miss Brown is a good woman.
So she
to
and her
me.
daughter? She and her daughter died?
Well, I can't tell him to know one who did, because I don't go up there.
So, you alert of, this tragedy in your community?
Oh, but here we just say Miss Brown and him was family up there dead and government people up there.
It leave this community shake up. Because the first, we have like a one death crime, but we never have a triple or a quadruple, you understand? So this really leave the community shake up.
The Met Service says a tropical wave just west of Jamaica is expected to produce cloudy conditions across the island and continue to affect weather conditions throughout today. For the past 2 days, eastern parishes have been severely impacted by torrential rainfall, which has resulted in landslides, flooded homes and businesses. Our reporter Giovanni Dennis is in Portland and now reports.
So this main road in the Dolphin Bay area in Portland is still reduced to single-lane traffic, and it has been the case since yesterday. Now, as you can see behind me, workmen are trying to remove some of the fallen trees from some of the poles here. This is one of the local telecoms companies trying to clear their wires from further damage from yesterday's rainfall. Now, we have been speaking to some of the motorists who traverse this area on a daily basis, and they say it's causing significant inconvenience to them.
Inconvenience because, you see, when we come, we have to wait half an hour, 45 minutes before we can get through to go to. So we can't make no good money again.
I understand. I was parked for long, and we have to just work really hard. We can't really do nothing still, but pressure us, me I tell you the truth.
The main thing what should have been happening from the first place before the road even set up, they know that these places have been sliding from here to St. Thomas, so they should have put in a retaining wall so people wouldn't have that, and a man have to be running out of his house yesterday for fear for his life.
Now, apart from the motorists that we've been speaking with business operators who are doing cleanup operations at their premises, and also residents who are raising serious concerns about the lack of ongoing drain cleaning and maintenance of the drains in the parish. And for those, we'll have much more details in Primetime News at 7. But for now, it's back to you in studio.
The RGR Gleaner Group will this afternoon begin releasing the results of the latest RGR Gleaner Don Anderson polls. The Jamaican Public Service was polled on a number of constitutional issues, including the form of government that should be adopted following the removal of the British monarch as head of state, and should there be independent senators. We also asked whether there should be provisions for the impeachment of the head of government and the recall of members of parliament. The poll will also reveal the latest party standings. Field work was done between August 30 and September 14 with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. The results will be released in Beyond the Headlines, Primetime News, The Gleaner, and on all our social media platforms. It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. As part of efforts to contain the current dengue outbreak, the St. James Health Department will be extending its hours for vector control activities. This will also be for all health facilities across the parish. More in this report from Carrie Simpson.
An assurance from Parish Manager at the St. James Health Department, Lennox Wallace.
We're going to do more to ensure that we reach a wider population and in record time. So you might hear the announcement at 4 a.m. in the morning, because we are going to go out there during the mornings and during the evenings.
He says it will not be business as usual, as the health department is aware of the possible impact of the dengue virus even on its own members.
The scourge of this illness, it can render you immobile for weeks. We don't want to see any of our workers or the community at the hospital. We want to ensure that as a team, health department, municipal corporation, parish council, the NSWMA and the police form our team when we go into these communities to ensure that we keep this to a minimum.
And Mr. Wallace says the opening hours for all health facilities in the parish will also be extended.
All our type 3 health centers, so we have Maroontown, we have Cambridge, we have Catronall, we have type 5, which is a type 5 health center, Mount Salem Health Center. We will not operate from 8:30 to 5 during this period. We will operate from 8:30 to 8 p.m. at nights to ensure that even the citizens who are coming off work, they can visit these facilities. And this is not really...
In the meantime, Mr. Wallace says there are plans to upgrade more health facilities across the parish to ease the burden of major hospitals. Carrie Simpson, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Remittances in the month of July totaled $283.9 million. The Bank of Jamaica says this is 1.2% lower than for the same period last year. This brings net remittance inflows for the first 7 months of 2023 to almost $1.1 billion, a $23.6 million decline versus January to July 2022. Further afield, Swiss banking group UBS has signed a memorandum of understanding with the world's largest lender by assets, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, to explore collaborations in China and overseas markets. According to a UBS statement, the banks will explore cooperation in asset management, wealth management, and investment and corporate banking. UBS completed an acquisition of its smaller crosstown rival Credit Suisse in June, through which it now holds a 20% stake in Industrial and Commercial Bank of China Credit Suisse Asset Management Company. Nissan will accelerate plans towards electrification by committing that all vehicles sold in Europe will be electric by 2030. The announcement comes despite the UK postponing its 2030 ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars to 2035. Nissan's boss said the firm's move was the right thing to do. Nissan will also introduce new battery technology by the end of the decade that is said will reduce both the charging time and the cost of electric vehicles. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Kelisha Williams.
The Business Minute, brought to you by...
Contact us today and let IslandNet power your dreams.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Cayman Islands government has reversed a policy banning people who had visited or lived in the country affected by bovine spongiform encephalopathy (BSC), commonly known as mad cow disease, from donating blood. As a result of the policy change announced by Health Minister Sabrina Turner in Parliament, people who lived in Britain between 1980 and 2001 or who had received a blood transfusion in the UK from 1990 onwards can now give blood in Cayman Islands. On the international scene, an explosion at a fuel depot in Nagorno-Karabakh killed at least 20 people and injured hundreds more. Nearly 300 people were admitted to hospitals, with dozens still in critical condition. It comes as the Armenian government said 13,350 refugees had crossed into the country from the enclave. The disputed region in Azerbaijan is home to a majority of some 120,000 ethnic Armenians. And Russia is seeking to rejoin the United Nations Human Rights Council in an election that will see a key test of its international standing. It was expelled from the UN's preeminent human rights body last April after its forces invaded Ukraine. But now Russia diplomats are seeking to get their country re-elected. Diplomats said Russia was hoping to regain some international credibility after being accused of human rights abuses in Ukraine and within its own borders. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jeremy Brown.